Let's talk a little bit about the latest coming out of Gaza. It is disgusting. I mean, there was talk of a ceasefire. I think that's obviously mostly performative and not going to happen anytime soon, unless we can somehow start a rumor that Netanyahu insulted Trump's penis size or something. Like, I really do think Trump can be moved through personal grievances and perceived slight. So let's try to spread that rumor. But there's just today, the atrocities are they're overwhelming. It's like every time you think it can't get worse, it gets worse. So we're seeing absolute chaos from the Gaza Aid Organization, which is a total sham, and then victim blaming. So let's just take a look at this video. Again, these are people, it's really important to point out, these are people, this is not some natural disaster. Like, this is a policy decision. These people are being starved, and in the case of young and elderly, often to death. And then you have this fake aid thing. Okay, so we have this video. Let's hear what Netanyahu had to say about this.
We worked out a plan with our American friends to have controlled distribution sites, where an American company would distribute the food to Palestinian families. We tried the first one. We're going to put many today. There was some loss of control momentarily. Happily, we brought it back under control. We're going to put many more of these. And the idea is basically to take away the humanitarian looting as a tool of war of Hamas, to give it to the population, eventually to have a sterile zone in the south of Gaza where the entire population can move for its own protection.
It's sterile, it's very interesting choice of words, right?
Yeah, seriously. So what is your response to both these horrific scenes that we're seeing and also, of course, Netanyahu's presentation of what's happening?
Well, I just to be very clear, when you have war, it always creates looting and black markets, and you're always going to have a tiny fraction of society that's taking advantage of that, right? For whatever it is, greed or survival, whatever it is. But to say that that's such a problem that Israel has to come in and run things as if Israel isn't responsible for starvation, it's so the gaslighting is unbelievable. I remember, because I know my World War II history pretty well, and you had the Nazi food minister, his name was Backe, and he literally created what is called the hunger plan. And they had they calculated how many calories they could use to starve the Soviet prisoners of war and to make sure that, German soldiers have their bellies full at their expense. And of course, the logic behind this was that, Russian or Soviet soldiers are Slavs, and therefore, they're also Bolsheviks, and they're an inferior subhuman race, completely, racist, anti-Semitic, anti-Russian, Slavic, Nazi ideology. And that, I couldn't help but think of that when I found out a couple of years ago, for example, that Israel was doing the same thing in calculating how many calories it could put into Gaza. So just
putting them on a diet.
Exactly, yeah. And so that was when there was no October 7, right? That's a decade or two ago, when there was no declared sense of urgency like Netanyahu is claiming now. So you can just imagine when we see the genocide happening, what is going on there. And I think this is going to be one of those clips where people watch it in history class and they're just like, what is wrong with everyone else? This guy is off, but what was everyone else doing to stop him? The guy got on camera and said it, and no one did anything. It's really horrific seeing those people, in Gaza running and being humiliated like that. Right. I think that's also a part of it's intentional.
Part of me almost didn't want to play it because I didn't want to feed into this idea of these kind of brutes. I mean, it's very hard for me to even look at this footage. And then on top of it, it's knowing that this is a man-made, inflicted genocidal policy, and they're being humiliated, like you just said, Richard. And then it's a hard thing because you also want to show what's happening because the world needs to see it.
Exactly.
But they're being so dehumanized. And I think it's also important that even now, want to give any Biden people credit, but I do think it's important. We have a video just to show you like how dishonest the claim is that this is something that's like being done, like the victim blaming, I would say, or even the claim that this is Hamas that's stealing it, right? That's a big claim. And Jonathan Cook pointed out, like, Israel has so much surveillance. If they had any documentation of this, they would be streaming it like all the time. But here actually is a clip of an ambassador, David M. Satterfield, and he is someone who actually under Biden, he ran the humanitarian effort under Biden. And here's what he had to say about the claim that Hamas is responsible for stealing the aid.
That Hamas was stealing, profiting, and diverting the majority of the aid that was coming in. That is Israel's claim. How do you respond to that?
And by the way, this woman is someone who really pushed the mass rape hoax. And I didn't see her ever talk about the video of Israeli soldiers gang raping a Palestinian hostage. But anyway, okay, let's hear what he has to say. And again, this was someone who worked for Biden. This is not someone who worked for a president who was very critical of Israel. Okay.
No such allegation or evidence in support of allegations like that were ever provided privately by informed Israeli security or political officials. It is a claim which, on the face of it, is not reflected in any of the experience that those involved in the humanitarian effort have seen. Did Hamas benefit politically from its presence at distribution sites to reinforce to the population of Gaza that they remained effective and in place? Certainly they did. Did Hamas take some assistance? Quite likely. But from the UN and INGO channels, which were highly accountable, whatever aid was ultimately diverted in any fashion by Hamas was minimal compared to the aid that was received by the general population. Now, the same can't be said about aid that came in outside UN or international NGO channels. That's a different matter, and Israel understands that. But we're speaking now of the UN. The allegations that the majority, I've heard some claims, all of the assistance was seized by Hamas, that has never been made privately to officials involved in this process, nor demonstrated through evidence.
So again, this is someone who is not going to be very quick to criticize Israel, but this is just such an unbelievable claim that even someone like that is pushing back.
It is. And you know, I just like to remind people that the UK is providing a lot of intelligence to the Israelis on a daily basis. There are these flights coming out of Cyprus that we know about, for example. And again, that's just what we know about. There's also human intelligence resources, and also satellites and all sorts of other, mediums through which intelligence is gathered that is being supplied to Israel by the UK, by the US, by their allies. And again, it begs the question, if this claim is true, why not just, show that evidence? And I also don't understand the claim because, if let's say it's true that, Hamas took the aid, well, why do you just condemn the civilians to starve? I mean, it's not their fault.
Right.
Is it? Right.
That's a really important thing to point out. Yes. Like, again, they are so used to controlling the narrative that they forget, like, that doesn't actually make it okay. Like, even if there were a Hamas person in this hospital, you're not allowed to do that. Like, They pretend that they're following rules of war and humanitarian law, and they are absolutely not. And all these like Israel defenders just parrot these talking points. I'm like, all you're doing is admitting to crimes that are war crimes. And you think because you have your heads up your asses that you're giving some legal justification. No, you're not allowed to bomb a hospital just because you claim there is someone in there. And you know what? Lots of people are in Hamas, and lots of people are not combatants. And they're rules of war. And this isn't even a war. This is a genocide. But at the very least, pretend to be observing these rules of war. But thank you for making that point, because sometimes it's like we're like so busy responding, debunking, that we forget to like center the important part, which is that who honestly gives a shit if that's the case? Like, what we need to be pointing out is that they are just slaughtering people.